everybody, it's Veronica. Thank you for joining me on this Google Hangout. And let's go ahead and get started. If you're tuning in late and you've missed anything, the replay will be available immediately after. So the next step after you outline your plan, your outsourcing plan, is to create your budget. You need to know honestly how much you have to spend on outsourcing. And like I said before, don't estimate too high or too low. Figure out, if you don't have a lot of money to spare right now, figure out what are some things that you might be able to cut out that you're not necessarily using to their full capacity that you're currently paying for. And then figuring out what your budget is for outsourcing also makes sure that you stay on track, that you don't end up inadvertently outsourcing too much and overspending, or that you don't inadvertently end up not outsourcing enough and find that there were more things you could have outsourced, but you ended up doing them yourself because you didn't realize that you could have actually spared those extra couple of dollars. Knowing exactly what you have to spend on anything, not just outsourcing, but knowing your budget will greatly reduce your anxiety when you know exactly how much you have to spend on a particular task or a particular project or a particular item within your business. So also identify your spending categories. What else do you spend money on each month? Go through your books, go through your bookkeeping if you're keeping things in Quicken or QuickBooks or just in your bank account. Go over everything, figure out what you're currently spending money on each month and how much, and include rent, utilities, salaries for any of your current employees, or what you're paying any current contractors if you have anybody that is working outside of your business, any type of insurance, your marketing expenses, your product development, advertising, PR, any kind of a bookkeeper or accountant that you may be paying to do your books, any online software subscriptions you have, any kind of office maintenance and repairs that you need to set aside for your business. Make sure you know all of that. If you're already keeping your books in something like QuickBooks or Quicken, you can run reports for that really easily and get all of that information just in a snap. If you're not already doing that, I suggest that you start, and maybe the first person you need to outsource is a bookkeeper or accountant, because you really should be able to pull that information up at a moment's notice so that you have an idea of where your business is, where it's going, where it's been, and what you need to do to keep it going in the direction you want it to go. So with reference to that, once you have your current expenditures, once you know what you're currently spending, and I would go back probably like 6 months is good to get an average of what you're spending on a monthly basis. What you'll need to do to figure out how much you have to spend is estimate what your expenditures are going to be going into the future. So like I said, look back about 6 months, average the last 6 months to see what your expenditures are on a monthly basis over the last 6 months. And then in your budget going forward, budget those same amounts out. If there's anything coming up that you're going to need to set aside money for that you haven't spent money on in the last 6 months, make sure to put that in there. And if you've been in business for a couple of years, you can always look back at your past year and you can see if there's certain, like I used to have in my accounting practice again, I used to have annual software subscriptions that I had to pay for, and annual licenses and annual certifications and stuff like that would come up at different times throughout the year. So sometimes when I look back at my last 6 months, it looked like I was only spending a certain amount of money. Then if you look back at my past year, there were some months where I would have just these huge expenses all in one month that that pertain to annual contracts or annual subscription type services. So use your bank statements and your invoices to identify real numbers. Don't just off the top of your head try to say, oh, I think I spent about this much on this. The next thing you need to do is track your actual spending, kind of like back on the outsourcing plan. We tracked your actual time, how you spent your time for a couple of weeks. So track your spending, log your receipts every week, and really pay attention. I know a lot of people, when you get really wrapped up in your business, you just start taking those receipts and throwing them in a box, or maybe they don't even make it to the box. Maybe they just stay in your wallet or in your purse, or God forbid, you throw them away. Don't do that, by the way. Do not do that. I had so many clients that thought, oh, well, I don't need the receipt because I just bought this on my debit card or on my credit card, so it's going to show up on there. So they toss the receipt, and then at the end of the year, or however often I was doing their accounting, I would know where they spent money, but not specifically what they spent it on, and maybe they wouldn't even remember at that point what they bought. And the other problem with that is if you get audited, the IRS is going to want to see the receipts so they know what you bought, because okay, fine, you went to Best Buy and you spent $1,200, but what did you buy? You can tell them that you bought a computer for the office, but maybe you went and bought a big screen TV, so they're gonna let you write off the computer that you can prove with the receipt you bought, a computer, and there it is sitting in your office. They're not gonna let you write off the big screen TV that you have on the wall in your bedroom. And if you don't have the receipt to prove what it was, they're gonna assume that it's not a legitimate write-off and you're gonna owe extra taxes. So keep all your receipts, please. Not only for this project, but just in general. So then what you need to do is, after you know exactly what all of your actual expenses are, and you've tracked your own spending every week, and you have your receipts, you need to balance your budget and look at, does the amount of your expenses exceed the amount of your income currently? And a lot of people think, well, how could that be? How could I spend money I don't have? People spend money they don't have all the time. It's called credit cards. And it's called not paying your bills on time and putting them off because you don't have the cash right now. Maybe you're a couple of months late on certain things. So it's totally possible to spend more money than you have in a lot of different ways. It's also called not paying your taxes on a regular basis. Again, the accountant in me. Um, as a business owner, you don't have taxes automatically withdrawn from your income. So at the end of the year, when you file your taxes, that's when you find out how much tax you owe. And a lot of times, for a lot of people, it can be a rude awakening, and you may not have all the money available at that time to pay those taxes. So you need to be making a monthly deposit, or at least a quarterly deposit, to the IRS for your estimated amount of the taxes that you're going to owe at the end of the year. It just makes things so much easier for budgeting purposes, and also for not having a heart attack when you get your taxes done at the end of the year. So if you do find that your expenses are exceeding your income, you need to find ways to cut back on your expenses. You also need to find ways to increase your sales. And one of the ways to increase sales is to outsource the tasks that you don't need to do, or the tasks where you can pay someone less than your hourly wage to do them, so that you can then take that time and spend it working on the tasks that are going to make you that money, that extra money. So don't spend your time doing data entry or answering customer service emails if it's not necessary for you to do it, when you can pay someone less than what you can make per hour. Then you outsource that. If you normally spend a couple hours a day doing that stuff, take those couple of hours and go make your $100 an hour or whatever you make, $50 an hour, whatever. You can outsource all that stuff for way less. Do it. So that would be one way to increase your sales. Ways to cut back on your expenses, there's a lot of them. One would be go through and see all the things that you're currently spending money on that you're not actually using. A lot of people have subscriptions to things that just renew on a monthly basis or an annual basis that they don't even pay attention to, they don't even think about, because they're small numbers, maybe $5 a month. Maybe you have a couple of subscriptions to tools or information that it's hitting your bank account or your credit card every month for $5 or $10 a month, and no big deal, but are you really using it? If you're not, that $5 could get you a graphic design on Fiverr. You know, it could get you someone to go and fix some element of your website that's not working. You add it up over a few months, it could get someone to build you a new website, or to put together a new theme. If you're using WordPress, put together a new theme for your website, give it a makeover, make it look better. It could pay someone to go in and brush up your copy on your website so that you're able to make more sales. Um, there's a lot of ways that that money could be better used rather than paying for something that you're not using at all and that's not making you any money. So that'd be the first thing, is to look for any kind of subscriptions, any recurring expenses that you've been paying that you're not using. That's the biggest one usually, and the biggest thing that makes a lot of people just sick to their stomach when they realize how much they've spent on just crap that's not doing them any good. The other thing would be, if you're like a lot of people who do internet marketing or online businesses, going around buying every new product that's released, every new marketing method, every new training program, in order to try to get ahead, or in order to try to find that next big thing that's going to make the money that you want to make. And all you're really doing is spending money and spending money and spending money and spending money. And has any of it paid off? Really? Um, so stop buying everything, hoping that it's going to work, because how many of those programs have you really followed through on all the way? Probably not a lot. How many of them, if you have followed through, actually gave you the return you were expecting? Probably not a lot. It's not you. It's just statistically that's how it is. Um, so cut out that stuff. Only buy things that are actually going to make you money, things that you're actually going to follow through on, or going back to outsourcing, things that you're intending to take that package, maybe, review the training yourself, and then hand it off to an outsourced worker for them to actually do it. The other thing to consider is, don't buy any new ones. Just go over all the ones you've already purchased that you intended to get around to eventually. Take those, hand them off to an outsourced worker, and have them do it. I mean, before I started outsourcing years ago, I used to buy stuff all the time that I was like, oh my God, this would be so great. I'm gonna implement this in my business. It's gonna bring me all these new clients. It's gonna bring me all this new web traffic. I'd buy it, I'd start studying it, and then like my real life would intervene, and I'd have to go back and start doing my normal business and making money my normal way. And this great idea that really was a great idea would get shelved, and it would stay on the shelf. And then maybe another great idea would come up a month or two later, and I'd buy into that and study for a couple days maybe, and then I have deadlines coming up, so that gets shelved and it stays on the shelf. So what I did first when I started outsourcing was all of these great things back here that were still on the shelf, that were supposed to bring me more clients and improve my business, improve what I was able to offer in my accounting firm. Pulled those off the shelf and I handed them off to my outsourced workers, and I said, here, go do this. Go do this for my company, for my business. And, if you need anything from me, let me know. But I gave them the training. I didn't have to train them, nor could I have, because I didn't know how to do what I was asking them to do. I hadn't gone through the entire training. I just handed it off to them. They learned it from the training. They came to me when they had questions that were specific to my business, information that they needed, but then they just went and did it. And it was done, and I got to do what I needed to do, what only I could do, which was to service my clients at the highest of my capacity. So once you've done once you've balanced your budget, once you've figured out what are your actual expenses, what's your actual income, is there a difference there? Are you spending more than you're making? What are ways that you can cut back? What are ways that you can increase your income? Get that at least level, at least even. Ideally, obviously, you want your income to far exceed your expenses. But if you're currently exceeding your income, if your expenses are exceeding your income, the first thing you need to do is get it even. And then we'll work on getting your income higher. So the next thing to do is review your actual spending each month. And so this is where we go from the budgeting portion of it, which was looking back at your past books and averaging out over the last 6 months. This is where we go to what you're actually spending right now that you're conscious of where you stand financially. What are you doing now? How are you spending now? Have you changed it if you need to? Have you changed your spending? So your actual, not your budgeted, but your actual expenses. Are they in line with your estimate? Are you spending more or are you spending less? Look at the categories where you may be spending more or spending less. Adjust your budget to account for those differences. And if you were able to stay under budget, for example, by cutting out some of the stuff that I mentioned before, awesome. Now you have money for outsourcing. Join me again tomorrow when we'll talk about where to find your outsourced workers. For more information on outsourcing and all things business and marketing, visit my website at vkcoach.com. That's VK as in Veronica Kirchhoff, coach.com.